Most people who meditate are doing it completely wrong. Not because they lack discipline, not because they choose the wrong technique, not because they sit incorrectly or breathe at the wrong rhythm, but because of one invisible assumption sitting quietly at the back of their mind, an assumption so subtle, so deeply embedded in the way they think about themselves and their practice, that they never even notice it's there. And until they see it, until they truly see it, nothing changes. The silence they find in meditation is borrowed silence. The peace they touch is borrowed peace. And they will spend years, maybe decades, meditating every single morning and evening, building the habit, logging the hours, and still wondering why something essential still feels missing. This video is about that missing piece. And I want you to stay with me until the very end, because what I'm going to share with you is not a technique, it's not a method, it's not a new way to breathe or focus. It's something far more fundamental than that, a shift in understanding that can change the entire quality of your inner life, not just during meditation, but in every single moment of every single day. If that sounds worth your time, then do me a favor right now and subscribe to this channel. Every week we put out content exactly like this, stories and ideas that go beneath the surface and actually move something inside you. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss it. Now, let's get into this. Imagine a man named Daniel. He's in his early 40s, lives in a quiet suburb outside of Chicago, works a steady job in finance, married with 2 kids. From the outside, his life looks completely fine, comfortable, stable, but inside, Daniel carries something heavy. He's carried it for so long that he's almost stopped noticing the weight of it. It's a low-level hum of anxiety that never fully goes away. It follows him into work meetings, into dinner with his family, into bed at night. It's there when he wakes up at 3 in the morning and stares at the ceiling, his mind already spinning through tomorrow's problems before tomorrow has even arrived. 3 years ago, a friend suggested he try meditation. Daniel was skeptical. He was the kind of man who liked results, who liked measurable progress, who liked to be able to point to something concrete and say, "I did that." Sitting still and doing nothing felt dangerously close to wasting time. But he was desperate enough to try it, so he downloaded an app, started with 10 minutes a day, and gradually worked his way up to 30. He read books on mindfulness. He went to a weekend retreat. He learned about the nervous system, about the vagus nerve, about how focused breathing can shift your brain out of fight or flight and into a state of calm. He understood all of it intellectually. He even felt calmer during his sessions. But here's what Daniel told me when we talked. I feel better when I'm meditating. But the moment I open my eyes, it's like I step back into myself and everything comes flooding back. And that sentence right there is the most honest description I have ever heard of what happens to most people who meditate. They create a temporary refuge, a 20-minute island of calm inside an ocean of noise, and then they step off the island and the ocean swallows them again. They are not wrong to seek the island. The island is real. The calm is real. But they haven't yet understood what the ocean actually is, and more importantly, they haven't yet understood what they are in relation to it. Here's the truth that most meditation teachers either don't explain clearly enough or assume you already know. Meditation is not a thing you do. Meditation is a state of being that you either recognize or you don't. When you sit down and say to yourself, I am now going to meditate for 30 minutes, you have already, in that very framing, set up a barrier between you and what you're actually seeking. Because you have made it into a task, you have placed it inside time. It starts at 7:15 and it ends at 7:45. And somewhere in between you hope to find peace. But peace, real peace, the kind that doesn't evaporate the moment you open your eyes, does not live inside a 30-minute window. It is not something you visit. It is something you are when everything that is covering it, has been allowed to settle. Think about a snow globe. You know those little glass spheres with a tiny scene inside, and when you shake them, the snow swirls around in a beautiful white blizzard? Most of us walk around like a constantly shaken snow globe. The snow is always in the air. The scene inside, the truth of who we are, is completely obscured. Meditation, at its deepest level, is not about shaking the globe in a different pattern. It's not about controlling the snow or redirecting the swirl. It's about setting the globe down and letting the snow settle on its own. It settles not because you force it to, not because you're skilled at settling it, but because settling is its natural state when you stop disturbing it. The stillness was always there. It was never gone. It was just hidden. Daniel didn't understand this for the first 2 years of his practice. He was still, in a very subtle way, trying to force the settling. He would sit down, take his deep breaths, follow his guided meditation, and he would be trying, actively trying, to feel calm, which meant that there was always a part of him that was watching, evaluating, checking in. Is it working? Am I calm yet? Am I doing this right? And that watcher, that evaluator, is itself a form of mental noise. You cannot become still by watching yourself become still. The watching is the disturbance. This is the paradox at the heart of real meditation, and it's the paradox that so few people talk about clearly. The very effort to meditate can be an obstacle to meditation. Not always, and not in every form of practice. Effort has its place, especially in the early stages, just as training wheels have their place when you're learning to ride a bike. But there comes a point where the training wheels need to come off. And for a lot of people, that point comes and goes without them ever noticing, because they're so committed to the effort, so proud of the discipline, that they never ask whether the effort itself has become the limitation. There was a teacher, and I'm not going to name him because the name doesn't matter, the lesson does, who said something that changed the way I understood all of this. He said, "You cannot travel to where you already are." Sit with that for a moment. You cannot travel to where you already are. The peace you are seeking in meditation is not somewhere you need to get to. It is not a destination. It is not a state you arrive at after sufficient practice. It is the ground beneath your feet right now, this very moment, obscured not by your lack of discipline or your insufficient technique, but simply by the noise of your own thinking. Thinking that you have mistaken for reality, thinking that you have mistaken for yourself. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this is where the story shifts from being about meditation and becomes a story about identity, about who you think you are versus what you actually are. Most of us have a very particular experience of selfhood. We experience ourselves as a collection of thoughts, memories, feelings, preferences, fears, hopes, histories. We experience ourselves as the voice in our heads, the narrator, the planner, the worrier, the judge, and we spend enormous energy either defending that self or trying to improve it. We meditate because we want ourself to be calmer, less anxious, more present, which is a completely understandable motivation, but it's working at the surface level.